What if World War I wasn't just fought with bullets and trenches, but with bonds, banks, and balance sheets? We often imagine the Great War as a clash of empire's soldiers in muddy uniforms, cannons roaring across no man's land. But behind the bloodshed was a quieter war, a financial war, fought in boardrooms, counting houses, and central banks. Here is the mystery. How did nations already drowning in debt manage to sustain 4 years of industrial-scale destruction? And what secret economic decisions during those years still shape global finance today? Setting the stage. Before the first shot was fired in 1914, Europe was bound together by trade and gold. The gold standard was the backbone of trust. Currencies backed by gold reserves, ensuring stability and predictability. But war shattered that foundation overnight. Britain, France, and Germany faced an impossible choice: maintain the gold-backed system and run out of money, or abandon it and print their way to survival. Most chose the latter. And with that, the economic fabric of the modern world began to tear apart. The financial architects of the war weren't generals, but men like J.P. Morgan in New York, who would become the banker to the Allies, and financiers in Berlin who scrambled to keep the German war machine funded. Origins. When war erupted, nations expected it to be short. Governments borrowed heavily, issuing war bonds, essentially asking citizens to lend money to the state in exchange for future repayment. Posters promised patriotism and profit, lend to defend. But as the war dragged on, expenses soared, factories converted to munitions, food imports dwindled, and labor costs spiked. Britain alone was burning through millions of pounds per day. Soon, domestic borrowing wasn't enough. So the Allies turned to the one country still rich, neutral, and industrially booming: the United States. The rise American banks, led by J.P. Morgan and Co., became the economic lifeline of the Allied powers. Morgan arranged loans, facilitated massive purchases of weapons and supplies, and even acted as a de facto financial ministry for Britain and France. Meanwhile, Germany, cut off by the Allied naval blockade, turned inward, printing money and manipulating its financial system to survive. Inflation crept in, and by 1918, the German mark had already begun to crumble. What no one realized was that this hidden economic struggle was not just financing the war, it was reshaping global power. The U.S. quietly transitioned from debtor to creditor empire. Breaking point: by 1917, Britain's gold reserves were nearly gone. The U.S. entered the war that same year not just out of idealism, but because its financial system was now deeply intertwined with the Allied cause. If the Allies lost, billions in American loans would vanish. When the guns finally fell silent in 1918, Europe was shattered not just physically, but economically. Nations owed unprecedented sums. And the peace treaties made things worse. Germany was forced to pay crushing reparations payments that would soon destroy its currency completely. Fallout and failed fixes. The 1920s brought short-lived optimism, but underneath lay rot. Germany's hyperinflation wiped out the middle class. Britain tried to return to the gold standard and failed. The global financial order was broken, and the Great Depression was its echo. The attempt to rebuild after the war only deepened divides. America withdrew into isolation, while Europe struggled under debt and deflation. The economic scars of the Great War set the stage for an even darker conflict: World War II. Modern parallels. Here's where the story circles back to us. Today's global economy still runs on debt. In 1914, world debt was roughly 120% of global GDP. Today, it's over 330%. Central banks, once bound by gold, now create money with a keystroke. Like 1914, nations are again entangled in complex webs of economic dependence, this time through supply chains, trade deficits, and digital currencies. The question remains: what happens when the next global crisis forces the world to choose between financial stability and survival? Conclusion: 3 takeaways. Wars are fought as much with credit as with courage. Economic decisions made in crisis shape decades of history. Financial empires rise not on battlefields, but in balance sheets. The hidden economic struggle of World War I didn't end in 1918, it simply evolved. Every boom, bust, and bailout since then traces its roots back to that moment when nations learned they could print their way through war. So ask yourself, are we repeating the same mistake, only on a global scale? If you found this story revealing, hit subscribe, share this video, and stay tuned. because the next episode dives into how the financial ghosts of the Great War still haunt today's world economy.